chapter 9, the chapter of Rajavidya, Rajaguhya, that means the noble and secret and deep knowledge. And what is that deep knowledge, or the hidden knowledge, let's call it? It's hidden because many of us find it a paradox to understand the statement given in verse 6 of chapter 9, where Bhagavan says, Sarvani Bhutani Matsthani, all are in me. Naturally, if we were not all in that great ocean of consciousness in which we swim in sleep and in waking and in working or in daydreaming, in every state, we are in that great ocean. Sarvani Bhutani, all creatures are Matsthani, in me. But the paradox, he says in the previous verse, 5th verse is Nacha Matsthani Bhutani. But be careful, I don't dwell in them. Krishna consciousness doesn't dwell in them. What does it mean? It simply means that consciousness is not touched or affected by the actions of the Bhutani, which means the creatures. And the example, the very, very simple example given was that of a dream. Where does the dream occur? The dream occurs in my mind. Yes, I cannot see your dream, can I? And you cannot see mine. So the dream is completely mine, and I go through the dream. I can go through lots and lots of experiences of sukha, dukkha and panic or elation in my dream, and when I wake up, the dreamer on whom the dream was playing out, on whose mind, let's say, that dreamer is not affected by the loss or the pain or the horror or the panic, whatever we went through in the dream. We, the waker, we are not affected. But where was the dream occurring? In us. So Bhagavan says, all of you are playing out your drama in me. Naturally, if I was not there, my mind was not there, where would the dream play out? As an individual, I'm saying. So similarly, Bhagwan's presence, that supreme consciousness, is where everything is playing out, but at the same time, like the waker, when we wake up, all the drama and action of the dream is not affecting us. In the same way, Bhagwan says, Nacha Matsthani Bhutani, I don't dwell in you. All your sorrows and grief and deaths and births and celebrations and dejections, they are not mine. Oh, it looks as if Bhagwan is so indifferent to me after all. He is so distant from me. A bhakta would feel like this, not a jnani. Of course, both the paths are leading to the same, but a bhakta would be a little disappointed. But Bhagwan says, oh, no, don't be sorry. Because although I don't partake, I do not participate in your joys and sorrows and your destiny. Actually, I have a gift for you. I still love you enough to hold a secret gift for you. And what is that? That gift is, the moment you know me for who I am, that Krishna consciousness, the greatest gift is freedom, moksha. I hold that gift nicely wrapped up in shiny paper waiting for you, and that gift is mine to you. So, therefore, this whole chapter is about revealing where it is that we can actually experience that consciousness. And when we say where we can experience, that's also a paradox, because we saw that consciousness is as close to us as every single breath we take. And yet every single breath we are not aware of it, in the sense that it is going on. It is still keeping my body dynamic, but yet I am not aware of it every single moment. Therefore, it is al-zahir, it is always available, but I am not always conscious of it. So, this whole chapter is about experiencing that consciously, experiencing that which is always a part of us, which is always zahir, which is always so very obviously it's like the steam in the engine. My whole existence depends on it. The engine's existence depends on the steam. Otherwise, it's just a mass of iron and steel and pistons, and the whole engine is of no good. Steam. Now, you may or may not see the steam because it is so sukshma, it is subtle. Consciousness is like that. But without steam, the engine can't move forward, cannot be dynamic, it cannot perform its functions. We are exactly like that. Just a mass of flesh and blood and sthula body and sthula mind and sthula intellect. Why do I say sthula? Because it doesn't reach the sukshma conscious level. We have to go beyond it. Why do I need to know this nature of God? Well, the answer is simple. If I need to introduce, suppose Einstein is my friend, the scientist, okay. So I get up on stage and I have to introduce him. How do I introduce him unless I know him intimately? Unless I know everything about him. And therefore in the 11th verse, as we proceeded, Bhagwan is saying, what happens to those people who don't know me? How can they introduce me? Let's see what he has to say, Krishna first, and then see how we can introduce Einstein on stage. Number 11, chapter 9. Avajananti mam moodhaha manushim tanumashritam param bhavamajanantam mama bhut maheshwaram mama bhuta maheshwaram. Avajananti, I am disregarded. By whom? In the first line, by moodhaha. Arey, what are these moodhaha? It's a word used more than once in the Gita by Krishna. It means the foolish, the agyani. He's saying the agyani, when they see me in the human form, I mean, they have personified me. So Krishna is also aware that he takes an avatar, yes. But when people personify Bhagwan, then is that his real form? Is that his real form? So he says, no, such people who introduce me as, for example, the gopis will introduce me as the beautiful dancer of रास लीला करते हुए, डांस करते हुए जो भगवान आते हैं हमारे बीच में, वो हैं कृष्ण. ये तो गोपियों का इंट्रोडक्शन हुआ, their understanding of Krishna. And Radha will introduce him as that beautiful flute player whose music is so enchanting that she loses all sudh budh of the world. Okay, that is Radha's Krishna. Duryodhan ke liye Krishna kaun hai? Duryodhan, the one who is in the opposition, in the Kaurava side. Oh, for him Krishna is just one charioteer who is fighting from the side of his opponents. Enemy lines में एक charioteer है Krishna. Okay, for him that's all. That's the limited introduction. That's the limited identity that he understands of Krishna. For Arjun, who is Krishna for Arjun? For Arjun, Krishna is his dearest friend and cousin from childhood, and the one who is promised to help him to charioteer his chariot during the Mahabharata. Okay, that's all. So Krishna says, yes, I am all these. Of course I am all these, but I am much, much, much more. And what you have done is by making me little. Avajananti, you have disregarded by belittling my expanse, my huge, my whole infinite, eternal identity into small forms. पर हम स्मॉल फॉर्म से ही तो ऊपर जा सकते हैं ना. तो ठीक है, तो भगवान कह रहे हैं ओके, बट दीज आर नॉट द साइन ऑफ अ ज्ञानी. अवजानंती, यू आर डिसरिगार्डिंग मी बाय व्हाट? एंड द वर्ड ही यूजेस इज मानुषीम तनुमाश्रितः. यू आर गिविंग मी ह्यूमन फॉर्म. मनुष्य, मानुषीम in the first line. Okay, so you are giving me human form, but my form is transcendental. It cannot be encapsulated in this way. So when you don't know my higher nature, param bhavam ajanantah, not knowing my highest nature, what you do? You start mama bhuta maheshwaram. You have taken the recourse. You have taken refuge in these small little identities. Okay. In fact, a hint of this was also given in the 7th chapter when Bhagwan had given a hint of his true identity, and he continues to do it in small measures in every chapter. In 7th chapter, in the 24th verse, Bhagwan, if you remember, had said, Avyaktam Vyaktamima Pannam. Vyaktami Papannam, which means that I am avyakta. I am unmanifest. And all that you do is look for manifest form. Vyaktimapannam manyate mamu buddhaya. They think I am a manifested form. Who? Abuddhaya. The people with small intellect. Abuddhaya. These are Krishna's words. They think that I am a human form or some form. It may not be human, some form. And therefore idol worship. Actually, idol worship was not there before Vyasa introduced it in the later Vedic period. Before that, there was only nature worship of the elements of fire and wind and water. Only the great elements were worshipped. So we were nature worshippers, like all other early civilizations. But then idol worship crept in a little later. Why? Because we need symbols. We need symbols just like the symbol of the flag. The flag is of any country. It's a symbol that people salute and adore and get emotional about, and they respect and regard with great reverence. They treat it. Yeah, all very good. But understand that flag it stands for the nation. It is not the nation. It just stands for it. That people sometimes they forget in their excessive enthusiasm to personify Bhagwan. Bhagwan in his own words I am not advocating that we should go away from idol worship. Bhagwan himself is saying, Tano Masritam Manushim, you have created a human form and you have belittled me. Avajanantim means disregarded, belittled my true nature. And therefore, because of this excessive identification with a particular flag, with a particular idol, and all idols are actually made from padarth. Padarth means 5 elements. So they could be brass or stone or glass or any other kind of metal or stone. But then it is only padarth, right? All padarth means 5 elements. And the elements are only sthula. Sthula, which means jada, which means gross. So the logic is that okay, you have used the symbols of 5 elements and stone and glass or marble or whatever, you make an image out of me, but I am not sthul, I am not matter. That's very clear. Bhagwan is not matter, he is sukshma, he is beyond matter. So sometimes we forget this, and what happens because of our forgetfulness? That these symbols create fanaticism. My temple, my place of worship, my nation, yes, it is yours, but then that eternal consciousness is everyone's. How can that be divided? Can you divide the winds into Pakistani wind and Indian wind or Chinese wind? And wind is free. And what about wind is actually less sukshma than space. What about space, which is even more sukshma? How can I say this? Of course, when we have flights going over, we say, this is our space and you can't fly over my airspace. Yes, but if you go beyond that, is the space owned by anyone? Yeah, we can say 12 kilometers above my land, my particular land, the space is restricted. Okay, what about beyond that? Space is space. It cannot belong to anyone. Same thing we do with oceans. We say 12 nautical miles out from our shores, that is our land. Your boats cannot come in. What about beyond that? Ocean doesn't belong to anyone. So you still have to mark it. And marking and demarcating is a kind of limitation. How can you limit the vast ocean? How can you limit the vast space? In the same way, coming back to Einstein. If I don't know anything about the true nature of Einstein, and I get up on stage and I have been given the duty of introducing him and doing the honors, and I introduce him how? By describing him, his exterior, and I say, oh, he is a person with this wild mop of curly hair, and he's got these most piercing small eyes, and he's always dressed informally. What is this? Am I describing Einstein or some circus joker? It makes no difference to Einstein how he is dressed or how his wild hair looks or his shirt looks. Am I going to describe वो कहाँ रहते हैं? अरे वाह, वो तो वेले पार्ले में रहते हैं. What difference does it make? Bhagwan says, make umpteen number of temples, makes no difference. Yes, I will be there to quieten your mind because I am everywhere, but you can't demarcate me in simple terms. So if I don't know Einstein, I'm going to say he wears a certain half-sleeve shirt and he lives in a certain place in San Francisco. But I will not be able to say that he has come up with the greatest theory of relativity. Yeah. So E is equal to mc square. And what does that stand for? That stands for the great relativity of time and space, that all time is relative. Now I get into the real description of who Einstein is in his mind, in his sukshma level. But otherwise, no point describing Einstein at the sthula body level. That's exactly, just an example. To say that's exactly how we identify our gods. मेरे भगवान, आपके भगवान. मैं शाइवाइट हूँ, मैं आप वैष्णवाइट हो. मैं बुद्धिस्ट हूँ, आप जैन हो. मेरे पैगंबर मोहम्मद हैं, आपके पैगंबर बुद्ध हैं. What is this? Bhagwan says, I don't even understand what you guys are doing on this planet. Because this demarcation is like child's play, like making small sand castles and marking sand boundaries and saying, ye meri boundary, wo meri boundary. And these are sand boundaries which are very childish play. Anyway, in terms of that infinite eternal presence which is in everyone, whether he's a Buddhist or whether it is Muhammad or Buddha or Mahavir, it doesn't matter. That divine consciousness is with everyone, and to that last scoundrel on the street who is trying to pickpocket in the local train, everyone. The same time the scoundrel, that same electricity courses through every mobile and every device, irrespective of whether the device is used for listening to lectures or for viewing very what do you call it, lascivious content. It doesn't matter, to Wi-Fi, to electricity, everything is designed to be powered by the same power. Okay, now Bhagwan says, why is it that these people, these mudha, because he's called them mudha, the fools, the foolish people are incapable of understanding my true nature? What's the whole problem? So number 12, Bhagwan says, मोघाशा मोघकर्माणः मोघज्ञाना विचेतसः राक्षसी मासुरीं चैव प्रकृतिं मोहिनीं श्रिताः. These are the people who have taken refuge not in Devi Prakriti, that is in the divine nature, but in Rakshasi, आसुरी, असुरों जैसी प्रकृति, उस तरह के स्वभाव में उन्होंने अपना आश्रय, अपना रेफ्यूज लिया हुआ है. क्यों? ये क्या करते हैं ये लोग? मोघाशा, मोघ कर्मणा, मोघ ज्ञाना. लो, ये तीन चीजें गलत करने से they have misunderstood my whole true nature. What are these? Moghasha. So asha of course means expectation and mogh means deluded. So the delusory hopes that we have, moghasha, it's a delusory hope, which means it's the wrong hope, and that is, everyone knows that the false hope we have is that all my fulfillment, my completeness, my joy and my completeness lies in the world outside, that jagat, or it lies with some local government, and if I elect this particular politician, this local government is going to make my life happy. So my hope is pinned on anything outside, local government, friends, a particular kind of spouse. If I have that kind of spouse or these kind of children, only then I will be happy, or relatives, or this kind of multinational job, or that kind of project abroad or in India, some big project. My mind is hooked on to a whole lot of hopes. And these hopes, the asha, jisko kaha Bhagwan ne, they are delusory. Because I may have the biggest home and the best job and the best spouse, there is always an end to it. Everything which is made of matter is going to end. So we forget that, and Bhagwan doesn't ever fail to keep reminding us and saying, ये आशाएं आप किस चीजों पे लगाए हुए हैं? What are these false hope? मोघ आशा. My favorite verse is this 12th one, Moh Bhasha. And this Moh Bhasha, because my asha or my expectation or my hope is pinned on the wrong things, the next thing I do is Mogha Karmana. Second word in the first line. Mogha Karmana means all the futile actions. If my hopes are vain hopes, then the actions also I will conduct in order to gain those false hopes. So my actions are also futile and vain, like chasing wealth or promotion or travel or shopping or parties or naam or kirti or fame और वैलिडेशन, सिंपल वैलिडेशन. मैंने एक पोस्ट किया है, उस पोस्ट का कोई जवाब नहीं आया, किसी ने एक भी थम्स अप नहीं दिया, एक वैलिडेशन हमको चाहिए या एक जवाब. सो आई वांट मे बी अ नोटिफिकेशन और जस्ट अ रिप्लाई और जस्ट अप्रूवल. मीडिया हैज मेड अस वैलिडेशन जंकीज. Junkies meaning my brain now feels unfulfilled and incomplete if I make any statement. My presence is felt on the media, I think. If I make some statement or post something or post a video or exhibit something about my own self or what's going on in my mind right now, I think it's the profoundest statement and I put it on Twitter or any other medium, and I think my presence should be felt na. किसी को तो एहसास होना चाहिए मेरे अस्तित्व का, और किसी ने कोई जवाब नहीं दिया. एंड आई हैव बिकम अ वैलिडेशन जंकी, नॉट रियलाइजिंग दैट माय identity is not hooked on the world outside, and therefore I am making myself miserable by acquiring anything outside. Now media is only one example. I also acquire a big house so that I can have big parties, and then people can admire and say, oh wow, what a beautiful terrace, it's perfect for a terrace party. Okay, fine, good. But not for long, because neither the terrace nor I am going to last out this century. So or the biggest car or the fame, whatever I acquire is a mogha asha leading to my mogha karmana. That recognition, that acquisition that I am looking for is mogha, it's delusory. Bhagwan is reminding us. It's in vain, it's futile. So mogha karmana, I do all these actions to gain all these outer things. And what kind of information do I need in order to acquire the things of the world? I need all the wrong in the sense non-spiritual information. So if I have to take the best cruise in the world, I will gather information, worldly knowledge, only worldly knowledge कि कौन सा cruise सबसे most exotic और सस्ता है. Okay, then because I want to post it on my Facebook, you see. So all my friends should be saying that you have been on a most exotic cruise. And the moment they say it, I have a sense of self-worth and a sense of self-identity. But I'm forgetting that after 2 days, those friends who have given thumbs up and all those very, very bright, excessively exaggerated emojis, exaggerated expressions of emojis जिन्होंने दिए थे, वो 5 दिन बाद वो खुद ही भूल गए हैं कि अच्छा आप क्रूज पर गए थे, वो अच्छा ठीक है, हाँ वेरी नाइस, ठीक है, वो भूल जाते हैं. लेकिन वी कैरी दैट ऑन आवर माइंड्स and the information, mogha jnana. So we are gaining the wrong information from how to get the best promotion, where should I network so that I get the best projects, which is the best store for diamonds. I don't remember the brands of diamonds, otherwise I would name some brands. Tanishq, huh. So where can I get the best Tanishq diamonds? Now I am gathering information, right? This gyan that I am gathering is also gyan, isn't it? But it is mogha gyan. It is gyan about the world. It is sansari gyan. Bhagwan says, okay, it's okay, but it's not going to get you too far in your spiritual life. So there are people, sometimes you find them discussing at length. For a long time they'll be discussing which is the best spot, restaurant for a good meal, for the best exotic Italian or for the best exotic Brazilian meal or whatever. Now they get into this conversation not realizing that what am I going to do with all this exotic information? I have wasted 2 hours over a conversation discussing food or clothes or travel or acquisitions or promotions. But I have wasted my time because my mind is actually just wandering aimlessly out in the world, this gyan that I'm getting from of the outer world is the wrong gyan. Vichetasaha. Vichetasaha is the word used in the first line, last word. It means senseless, futile. Vichetasaha. Bhagwan is saying, what are you doing? And so we are acquiring a lot of mogha gyan because it is designed after our mogha asha. Agar mogha asha, the delusory आशा, that is delusory desire नहीं होता, तो delusory कर्म नहीं होता, और delusory ज्ञान भी नहीं हमको acquire करना पड़ता. So they are all connected. Wrong hopes, wrong action, wrong knowledge. Moghasha, mogha karmana actually, mogha karmana and mogha jnana. So there are two kinds of people that we can associate with. Or let's say, one Swami gave an example that there were two wives that a person had long ago, and one spouse was very, very niti parayan, and she was saral in her behavior, not very flamboyant and not flaunting anything, and she had no need to flaunt anything. So she felt very, and therefore when you don't have the need to flaunt anything which you have acquired with so much of effort just to show the world, and if I wear this new gown and no one admires it, I am quite disappointed because I've spent a long time designing it. So what are you doing? Are we acquiring everything in order to flaunt it and to gain validation and approval from the world? And then that spouse, the first spouse, was a niti parayan spouse who had no need for all these things, for flamboyance and flaunting and for acquisition, and therefore her mind, the quality of her mind was very sthir, it was steady, and therefore she had lots of space in her mind to really care for people of her society and have compassion, and lots of space was created in her life for swadhyaya, for adhyayan, for reading the scriptures or speaking about the scriptures, talking about it if she had acquired the knowledge of scriptures is the right gyan. And she spent a lot of time in smaran and shiksha and swadhyay. Okay, so that person also had another spouse. And the thing about arranged marriages, or even love marriages for that matter, because people when they fall in love, they're usually looking at the exterior, and the one thing that they forget to ask each other is, tell me one thing that fires you, that gets you shooting out of bed in the morning to say, aaj main ye karunga, aaj main wo karungi. And the moment you ask that one question, you know ki that person whom you are going to marry is unka man sansar mein hai ya kisi aur cheez mein hai. So are they going to be petty people we are getting married to, with petty concerns and petty projects and petty ambitions, or they have something larger in mind? So we can come to know only with that one question. But I don't know what they ask in arranged marriage interviews, but normally they also look at what the person looks like, the exterior, and there's a reason for it. So because the mind is a primitive mind, and the mind is still hardwired to looking for the best physique out in the jungle, because the animals knew that fittest of the survival. This is a jungle mentality, by the way. I read somewhere in an anthropological essay that the jungle mentality is the fittest of the survival. So the female of the species knows very well that if I find the handsomest and the fittest and the strongest mate, then my species is going to be preserved and will have very strong and healthy progeny, children. And that is in the mind. So it's in the primitive animal kingdom mind, and that we have inherited, because the quality of the mind, please remember, is still hardwired to many of these primitive things. So it is still hardwired. Anyway, but without thinking, we still have the capacity to reason out. But without using reason, we fall into this primitive thinking, and therefore this thing of beauty and handsomeness, and that is going to attract me, and that is going to give me the highest happiness in the world, is an illusion. Yes. So many of the fairy tales are being turned around now, because one of the subliminal, subconscious messages of all the fairy tales that we were feeding our children was that beauty means goodness, and non-beauty means the person has to be evil. And that was so wrong. And I spent a lifetime as a teacher trying to knock this conditioning out of the minds of teachers as a teacher trainer. I'm a teacher trainer, and and now it has come around. So if you see the latest version, Hollywood version of Snow White, and if you see Shrek, the whole, the whole concept of beauty plus goodness has been shredded, has been broken. Now, the people who do not understand this, the second spouse of this man, coming back to the story of the man with the second spouse, who was actually quite attached to a lot of things of the Jagat, of the world, unlike the first spouse. And so she had a great attraction for Lokeshna. People should appreciate me. Putreshna, I have attachment to the children. And Vitteshna, I should have more wealth than my neighbor. So Vitteshna, Putreshna, Lokeshna were her prime motivators. And so therefore, this spouse used to use the word Uttam, super, wonderful, amazing. You know, some of the superlatives that we use in the world today. She used to use these superlatives for what? For Shrangar. Shrangar means adornment of the body. So we are using the word Uttam for Shrangar only. Uttam is Param Uttam, that is, you have to reach the highest truth, but we are limited, petty, and we say Uttam for Shrangar, for food. The best food is there, the best restaurant is there. So all the Uttam words are used for Shrangar or Banawat or Sajawat or Dikhawat or Pradarshan, let's call it. So that flaunting is called Pradarshan. And therefore, what is obvious is that the second person had a very strong element of Rajoguna. Rajoguna, yes. So Sattvic and Rajasic. So she was very Rajasic. Now tell me, the person who gets into a marriage with these two spouses, the two influences are conflicting. One is very sthir and shant and looking for the highest truth and has a wider horizon of what is her challenge in life. Her challenge is bigger. I want to know God. I want to know the highest truth. Oh, what am I wearing today? Oh, it doesn't matter really. That is not her challenge. Her challenge is not what am I looking like today? Is my hair well shampooed today? I have to go to a party. Why am I not invited? And I am left out of this group. Her concerns are not. The concerns of the first spouse are not of the sansari level. And therefore, a simple marker for knowing who is a bigger person, who is a larger person in life is not the exterior, what sari he or she is wearing or what jewelry or the lack of jewelry or the whatever, the adornment. Adornment is not going to reflect our personality. It's going to reflect our lack of personality rather, if anything at all. So what is it going to reflect? The outer personality is not going to reflect my true nature. When we speak about what our real challenges are. And then you say, my challenge is before I die, before I shed this body, if I don't know the truth or I have not even heard, श्रवण भी नहीं किया है किसी स्क्रिप्चर से, इस सिद्धांत के बारे में पहचान भी नहीं की है हमने, तो फिर क्या खास किया है मैंने इस दुनिया में? ये मेरा बिगर चैलेंज है. And so I rise above the petty challenges and make the bigger my challenge. What is going to be the influence of these two wives? Conflicting influences on the same man. And therefore, it is his choice. The satsang of the first will lead him to the highest. The sangati of the second will keep him very strongly anchored to the sansar. The choice is his, because what the world has done to us, the more we dress up and adorn ourselves and acquire a big house and car and etc. Why? Because we are looking for that approval, which means what? Avdesh Anand ji is very fond of saying कि ये जो वस्तुएं आप इकट्ठा कर रहे हो, ये पदार्थ, ये भोग, ये वस्तु, आप स्वयं एक भोग के वस्तु बनकर रह गए हो. भोग के वस्तु means somebody else is appreciating you, somebody else is enjoying your beauty or your fame or being jealous of it. दो ही चीज़ें हो सकती हैं दुनिया में, या तो आपके आपके सक्सेस, ब्यूटी और वर्ल्डली सक्सेस से कोई खुश होंगे या कुछ ना खुश होंगे, राइट? And in both ways, the response, you have just become a vastu of bhog, of their response and their reaction. तो आप यानी हम सब जो संसार में रह रहे हैं वो सिर्फ एक भोग के वस्तु, स्वयं वस्तु बन गए हैं। वस्तु के पीछे भागते भागते, उसका भोग करते करते, we have become a vastu. The corporate world knows this very well. And the corporate world knows this psychology so well that sometimes, not sometimes, every time that they're launching a new product, they offer it free or at a minimal price, 5 rupees. And why do the corporates do that? Because they know that if anything is free, it means that the consumer is the product. The consumer, we are the consumers, we have become the product of their success or profit. उनको जो प्रॉफिट चाहिए उसके प्रोडक्ट के वस्तु हम हैं. Now this is I know it's a very radical statement to make, but that's the truth, that we have become actually objects, commodities. We have become commodities in the corporate world. Every time we go out and buy something, we are tempted by advertisement because that advertiser is treating us like a commodity of his profit. Bhagwan says, this is all mogha asha, mogha karmana and mogha gyan. जो भी चीज़ें आप हासिल कर रहे हो वो आउटर वर्ल्ड में है. मेरी बारी कब आएगी, कृष्ण की बारी कब आएगी? सो इन सब चीज़ों से विच आर माई क्वालिटीज विच आर स्ट्रेंथेंड. सो सेकेंड लाइन में 12th वर्स में भगवान कहते हैं, ओ द क्वालिटीज इन यू विच आर स्ट्रेंथेंड बाय लीडिंग अ लाइफ ऑफ द स्थूल लाइफ ऑफ कमोडिफिकेशन. एवरीथिंग इज ऑल्सो कमोडिटी. वी आर सेल्व्स आर ऑल्सो कमोडिफाइड बाय देम. Rakshasi, Asuri, that's a strong word to use by Bhagwan. He's saying, yes, you chase after possessions and finally you also yourself become a possession. And then say, I have achieved this, I have achieved that, and therefore you have a lot of darpa, dambha, flaunting, and then and all the hinsa and jealousy and all the violence of the social world and political world. So I won't go into that, but all that Bhagwan has described in the second line as Prakriti Mohinim Shritaha. Such people have taken the Ashritaha or the refuge, Shritaha, refuge of Mohinim, of delusion, Prakriti by nature. So when we choose our spouses or our company or our friends, it goes to say very, very naturally we are drawn into the same kind of lifestyle and thinking and thought process and asha and karmana and gyan. Why asha, karmana and gyan? Because our hopes and our the conversations that we hear around us are the ones which are giving rise to our hopes and desires and dreams and visions of what is right and what is great. So if you're talking about only that great restaurant in Netherlands which is unique, or that boat ride on the gondola in the Netherlands which is fantastic, yes, you may hear about it. But if you're hearing only of these things, my mind is only in the outer world. And if you're hearing in your the company of the people you keep, or the family, or the spouse you've chosen, if we are lucky, then the spouse has the greatest influence in our spiritual growth. That is the whole purpose actually of spiritual companionship. And then we can take the spiritual path or the worldly path. So the choice is ours. Devi or Rakshasi. Strong words. What about those who haven't taken this senseless path? So verse number 13. Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritimāśritaha bhajantyananya manasaha gyatva bhutadimavyayam. So the opposite of this Rakshasi. Why do we say Rakshasi? Because if you notice, even Ravan was highly educated. In the scriptures, mind you, we are only educated in the superficial sense of a degree or a certificate in some worldly knowledge. of management or this or that. All the worldly knowledge we acquire is for the world and in the world, and we leave it back in the world. It has no consequence at all. Ravan actually had scriptural knowledge. Can you believe it? And yet he acted the way he did by saying, I want this kingdom and I want Sita. What is this? So even the most educated person, educated in the real sense of scriptures, can become self-centered, can become selfish, can become centered around I, me, myself. That's the danger. And therefore, education is a word we have to redefine. So number 13, as I read, Bhagwan says the opposite of this, the mohit, deluded people, is the third kind of nature, and that is Daivi nature, Mahatma of the Now does it mean that, okay, hum to Mahatma nahi, hum to ordinary being? And no, it's just a way of describing the nature of a Daivik person. Now if you are in the company of a, let's say, a saint, a seer, a Mahatma, a Paigambar, if you go to any of these Sufi shrines, if you've had the opportunity to maybe go to Mevlana in Turkey, or a Buddhist shrine in Tokyo, or some of these beautiful Hindu temples in Jakarta. अरे हम इतने दूर क्यों जा रहे हैं? इंडिया को देखा है? India is the divine land of divinity. Every village in India will have some sant. कोई भी विलेज में चले जाओ, वो कहेंगे, अरे हाँ, ये पेड़ के नीचे ये फला फला संत रहते थे. हमने उनके बारे में नहीं जाना होगा, वो वर्ल्ड फेमस नहीं होंगे, लेकिन इंडिया ही एक कंट्री है, अजीब है लेकिन हाँ है, जहाँ हर गांव में, स्पेशली इन महाराष्ट्र, आप कहीं भी चले जाओ, वो कहेंगे हाँ, एक महात्मा यहाँ आते थे, या एक महर्षि, या एक साधु, या एक संत, या एक सन्यासी. कम से कम सन्यासी तो हर जगह मिल जाएगा, फकीर. और यहाँ फकीर की, सन्यासी की बहुत इज्जत होती है. दिस इज द ओनली लैंड इन द होल वर्ल्ड वेयर अ फकीर इज रिवियर्ड. एंड आई हैव मेंशन्ड दिस बिफोर. व्हाई? बिकॉज अ फकीर इज द वन who has the courage and the strength to give up sansar. Do you and I have that strength? No. We have so much of raga, attachment, raga and dvesha in the world. We don't have that strength. तो फकीर को जब देखते हैं, इंस्टिंक्टिवली किसी भी इंडियन को देख लीजिए, वो झुक जाएगा, नमस्कार करेगा, या हाथ में कुछ खाना पीना या कुछ फ्रूट होगा तो दे देगा. इट्स इंस्टिंक्टिव. वो जानता भी नहीं होगा क्यों. इट्स बिकम द DNA ऑफ द इंडियन कल्चर. Fakir is respected only in this land because he has the capacity to renounce. Renunciation एक quality है जो हम सब नहीं कर सकते. अच्छा, तो coming back, ये दैवी नेचर क्या होता है? दैवी नेचर जो भगवान कह रहे हैं, the opposite of the materialistic, आसुरी, self-centered, राक्षसी प्रवृत्ति, उनके प्रेजेंस में आप थोड़ी देर बैठ जाओ. और इंडिया का उदाहरण इसलिए दिया कि कहीं भी मिल जाते हैं ऐसे लोग. किसी मंदिर में चले जाओ, किसी गुरुद्वारा, किसी मस्जिद में आप थोड़ी देर बैठे रहो, कोई ना कोई पीर आ जाएगा. अजमेर की दरगाह में चले जाओ, कोई ना कोई कोने में. I have never failed to find someone who is sitting quietly and singing or just meditating or lost, एकदम daydreaming करने लग रहा है जैसे कि दूसरी दुनिया में है. ऐसे कंपनी में जब हम जाएंगे, what are the qualities that we imbibe from them? ये दैवी क्वालिटीज हैं क्या? सबसे पहले हम नोटिस करेंगे कि these दैवी क्वालिटीज आर दैट ऑफ कामनेस. कामनेस सबसे पहले तो वो काम है, मतलब कि नॉट हिंदी वाला काम, नॉट द संस्कृत वाला काम, इंग्लिश वाला काम. यानी कि दे आर स्थिर, दे आर स्टडी एंड क्वाइट, एंड एट द सेम टाइम दे आर अलर्ट. ये नहीं कि ये तामसिक वाला काम नहीं है. तामसिक यानी कि द वन हु इज रियली जड़ बुद्धि. नो, ही इज अलर्ट एंड येट ही इज नॉट रेस्टलेस. हम जब अलर्ट रहते हैं ना तो हाई एनर्जी आ जाती है एंड वी बिकम रेस्टलेस. सी द दैवी क्वालिटीज. यू विल फाइंड कि उनकी प्रेजेंस में, द वेरी प्रेजेंस ऑफ दीज पीपल विल ब्रिंग कामनेस, नो रेस्टलेसनेस, एंड दे आर डिस्टेंट फ्रॉम संसार. कोई भी चीज आगे पीछे कौन आ रहा है, जा रहा है, और दे आर अ बिट डिटैच्ड, डिस्टेंट, असक्त, उदासीनवत. ये शब्द पहले आया था इसी चैप्टर में, उदासीनवत, एकदम जैसे अलग बैठे हुए हैं, इंडिफरेंट, उदासीन एंड असक्त, डिटैच्ड. But at the same time, if you chat with them and talk about the world, there is great compassion. There is compassion because they know that the truth that they have found is, and we ordinary people are lost in this and that. We may have wealth, we may have a Mercedes Benz that we pull up in front of Ajmer ki Dargah, but our souls are impoverished compared to the shanti, the calm, the richness that abides in the heart of this Sant. I'm just giving the example of Ajmer because many times we've seen these kind of beings over there. But even if you go to Nizamuddin ki Dargah in Delhi, go to any temple, especially the ancient temples in South India, you will not fail to find these people. And the richness in their hearts, it makes us feel so small, impoverished. Kripan is the word Krishna has used in the second chapter, that we are wretched creatures. Kripan is wretched. And these people are always compassionate, gentle. Why compassionate? Because they know कि अरे ये richness जो मुझे मिली है वो दूसरों को नहीं मिल पाई है. I feel so sad. They feel sad for us because they are selfless. They are also non-critical. What am I describing? I am describing Daivi qualities which are the opposite of the Rakshasi, Asuri, self-centered, materialistic qualities described in verse 12. And the 13th verse describes the Daivi qualities. Mahatmanas tumam partha. Great souls. They are divine, Daivim prakriti. Unki prakriti Daivim hai. Verse number 13. They are not reacting. They are not judging people. They are non-critical. They accept. There is a great sense of acceptance. And that acceptance of everything that is going on, unke saath aur dusron ke saath. There is great acceptance in people and situations and objects, vastu, vyakti, parasthiti, kuch bhi ho. Acceptance वही है. और उस acceptance की वजह से उनके life में peace है. There is a great peace that descends on them and creates a kind of an aura around them. ऐसा aura कि हम उनके समीप भी अगर बैठ जाए ना तो हमको वो touch कर जाता है. That peace, that quiet, that letting go, that sense of surrender, let go, that forgiveness. And therefore, such are the people, if we have around us, any Swami who's willing to teach, any teacher who's willing to read the scriptures, then they are the ones who will help us grow. All other associations will only drag us deeper into the well of Asuri Rakshasi Pravritti, as described here. So what is the whole psychology of sadhana? The whole psychology of where is my sadhana? The sadhana is only in first of all recognizing that, oh, मैं बहुत राजसिक तामसिक प्रवृत्ति में पड़ गया हूँ. I am totally restless in the world. Excessive rajas creates restlessness. And therefore I am looking for sattva. The first step is I am looking for sattva. Second is I want to know, in that sattvic quality only the question arises as to what is the purpose of this world. What is my nature and what is my purpose in this world? All these questions come only when I am quiet and withdrawn from the world, from Rajasic into Sattvic quality. And then the sadhana goes into Shravanam. Naturally, only then I will start looking for a scripture or a teacher or a Swadhyay or a Satsang. Otherwise, I won't even look for this. So the third step is Shravanam, Mananam, Nitidhyasanam. Listen to the scriptures, contemplate all the time on some of the words that have struck us, and then keep that in mind in my dhyanam. Nitidhyasanam means hold on to it. So it's the kind of company we keep, the kind of pastimes we have, most of the time I'm saying, most of the time, because 5% or 10% of your time, if I'm spending in all the outer things, it doesn't really change my swabhava. It's not going to change my pravritti. But if the proportion is 80-20, yes, it will. And so the like-minded people who are sattvic in nature will have the sattva guna, and that will make the path much easier. Yeah. So Jesus Christ was very famously quoted as saying that my yoke is easy and my burden is very light. My yoke. Now, yoke word itself is so close to the word yog. Yog means to unite. Yuj in Sanskrit means to unite. And so yog means the union? What is this final union of the Jiva with the Paramatma, of my small little entity with that supreme ocean of consciousness, which is actually the same. That union, that final union in Samadhi or in deep meditation, if I can gain that union, yoga, and I'm tempted to say that the English word yoke, to unite, comes from that. So Jesus said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So come to me. I am the path, I am the way. This is what he meant. Daivi pravritti, I can lead you to it. Where is Arjun's attention? Arjun's attention is on attachment to his relatives and his teachers, and therefore he is deluded. Where is Duryodhan's attention? Duryodhan's attention is on victory and greed and kingdom, and therefore he is also deluded. भगवान says, go beyond this. आप पाप और पुण्य दोनों के परे जाएंगे, क्योंकि मैं कृष्ण में न पाप है न पुण्य है. I am beyond both. And going ahead, what is the behavior of such a Devi person? Devi quality, prakriti, which has been described in 13th verse. So their actions are slightly different in the world. How? Number 14. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavritaha namastasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. Namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. There are two words used here which have been much maligned and have been diluted to the point of misunderstanding. They have been diluted by overusage over the centuries. And what are these two words? The first line has the word satatam, always. Kirtayantaha, kirtayanto, kirtan karo. Okay, ठीक है. Kirtan यानी we have understood, and that's why I'm saying that the connotation has changed over the centuries. What did Krishna mean? Krishna certainly did not mean kirtan as in the noisy drums and the cymbal, manjira, bells, and the gross, crude expression of kirtan. It's a routine. It's important to have a routine. And on specific days you may offer certain specific pujas, etc. And then you say, okay, I'm done and dusted. I have done my religious work. In this festival I have kept 10 days of upas. And really I have become a religious person, you see. So this is the kind of idea we hold in our mind about how pious or how devotional we are. Krishna has no such illusions about our devoutness, about our sense of devotional flavor of our lives, you know, that we dress up really nicely. In fact, we are heavily bejeweled even for the temple, more heavily jeweled for the temple. It's nice because we want to offer our best to that Bhagwan. It's a nice feeling. But why limit ourselves to that and say, yes, I have done all this kirtan and puja and pious activities and full stop? That is why Bhagwan has an objection. He doesn't have an objection to how beautifully we offer our prayers and upasana. He says if you stop there, it is akin to being just a superstitious mechanical action. Okay? So, Gyatva Bhutama Devyarya knows, one who knows Bhutadi Mavyayam, one who knows my pure consciousness, who am I? And only one who knows that pure consciousness can then talk about that highest truth, that ocean of consciousness, to anyone. So the moment we say I am speaking about this understanding of Bhagwan, this consciousness, that supreme eternal entity which is actually the basis of our existence, what am I doing? We are doing kirtan. This is what he meant by kirtan. He says, speak about the highest truth. Sing the praises of this consciousness. Not mechanically sing the praises of God in bhajans. Can also do that, but without realizing what that God stands for. We can't say, oh yes, Krishna has this beautiful orange robe and a flute which has divine music. Yes, I know that, but Aren't you going to tell this to the children, and as they grow up, aren't you going to tell them that this Krishna then stands for that highest consciousness? कि हम वही childish mentality में रह जाएंगे? बच्चों को बताने के लिए ठीक है. So even adults today quarrel over which side is Krishna holding the flute? Should be holding the flute, left or right, and there's a big quarrel over it. Are we children? Yes, spiritually very childish, because we've got into this exterior entanglement, and therefore Bhagwan says, क्यों तुम अपनी गाड़ियों के, अपने बच्चों के, अपने पतियों और पत्नियों के आप उसके गुणगान नहीं करते? वो तो ऐसे हैं, वो तो ऐसे हैं, वो तो बहुत ये है. आप गुणगान करते हो ना, तो उनका स्वभाव जानने के बाद उनके स्वभाव का गुणगान जैसे करते हो ना, बस मेरा भी गुणगान थोड़ा कर दिया करो, क्योंकि मेरा भी स्वभाव एक है. आई एम प्योर अवेयरनेस, and I am that Aadhar, I am that compassionate, that सर्वव्यापी, अव्ययम, unchanging part of you. मेरा भी थोड़ा गुणगान कर दो. Talk about me. See, भगवान has come down to the level of saying मेरा भी तो कुछ गुणगान, थोड़ा कीर्तन कर दिया करो. तो आज जब हम बोलेंगे कि नित्य और अनित्य में फर्क क्या है, जब लोगों को समझाएंगे तब लोग समझेंगे, अरे ये तो कृष्ण यानी कॉन्शियसनेस का कीर्तन कर रहे हैं. जब हम बताएंगे लोगों को ये मिट्टी में कुछ नहीं है, मिट्टी इज एनिमेटेड ओनली बाय कॉन्शियसनेस, कॉन्शियसनेस ही सब कुछ है, तब भगवान कहेंगे यस, ये मेरा कीर्तन हो रहा है, करो, अब करो. नित्य और अनित्य की बातें करो, सत्य असत्य क्या है उसकी बातें करो, व्हाट इज सत्य एंड असत्य, एंड व्हाट इज वैराग्य, इसकी बातें करो. ये मेरा कीर्तन होगा अगर तुम ऐसा कीर्तन करना चाहो. और दूसरी बात, सततम कीर्तयन्तः के बाद उन्होंने कहा नित्य युक्तः उपासते, उपासना भी करो. द सेकेंड मच डाइल्यूटेड वर्ड इज उपासना. तो हमने उपासना को भी समझ लिया है कि हम पत्र पुष्प और वाटर ऑफर करेंगे तो हमारा आई एम डन, मैंने अपनी पायस एक्टिविटी कंप्लीट कर दी. सो द मोमेंट भगवान इज सेइंग उपासना क्या है पता है? ही वांट्स टू रीडिफाइन इट. ही सेज उपासना इज व्हेन यू ड्रॉप योर फॉल्स सेल्फ, एंड योर फॉल्स सेल्फ इज ओनली एंड ओनली व्हाट यू थिंक इट इज. दैट इज योर, मेरा जन्म हुआ है तो जन्मदिन मनाओ भाई. ओके, मेरा बॉडी है तो आई एम दिस जड़ देह, मन, बुद्धि, अहंकार, जाति, कुल, औधा, अचीवमेंट, स्टेटस, ये मैं हूँ. भगवान कहते हैं नहीं, ये फॉल्स सेल्फ जब तुम ड्रॉप करोगे ना, ऑटोमेटिकली जो रह जाएगा, शेष जो रह जाएगा, दैट इज मी, बिकॉज आई एम ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ यू. और वो व्हेन यू रियलाइज दैट इज माई उपासना, टू कम टू माई ट्रू सेल्फ इज उपासना. तो उसका नमन करो, उसको नमस्कार करो. दैट डिविनिटी इन यू एंड दैट डिविनिटी इन एवरीवन. देयरफॉर नमस्कार is actually, it means I bow to the divinity in you. And people in the world are fascinated by this word, and people in England and all, there are lots of viral videos. They say ki wow, what a beautiful greeting, it's the best greeting in the world. They're teaching their children namaskar in Scotland. Some videos. Why? It means I bow to the divinity in you, because you are divine and everything is divine. That ultimate truth is upasana. Namasyantascha mam. Namastasyantam. You are prostrating before the divine. So ये namastasyantascha mam, second line में जो है, that is what namaskar comes from. Some people also claim that the word namaz also comes from namaskar, but that's a very, very long etymology, and you can go online and look at it. Yes, somehow it is connected in a distinct sort of way, but not directly, through some Persian and Arabic words of nama and namaz and namah, all these connections. Yes, in a very, very distinct cousin of the word namaskar is namaz also. In the same way, om, as I said, is also has the same sounds as Ameen or Amen. So the person who is conditioned in such a way, in Devi Pravritti, will sing my praises and will drop his false identity. नित्य युक्त उपासते, ये मेरी उपासना होगी। और जब सत और असत की, स्पिरिचुअलिटी की बातें करेगा कि सत आखिर क्या है, वो जब डिस्कशंस होंगे डिनर टेबल पर और सत्संग में और गैदरिंग्स में, वो मेरा कीर्तन होगा। दैट्स व्हाट भगवान इज सेइंग। एंड so this metaphor of Mahabharata is nothing but two kinds of conditioning. Mahabharata is nothing but a metaphor for two kinds of conditioning. एक की conditioning ये है कि हम संसारी हैं, और एक की conditioning ये है कि मुझे सत्य की खोज है। और दोनों सोचते हैं कि वो तो मेरा शत्रु है। कौरव और पांडव एक मेटाफर है between these two kinds of conditioning, आसुरी and दैवी प्रवृत्ति, and Rakshasi and Asuri Pravritti and Devi Pravritti. They are facing each other, ranged against each other as if they are inimical to each other, but they are opposites, yes. So Mahabharata may be looked upon as a kind of metaphor for this kind of two kinds of opposing Pravritti and Prakriti in all of us. And in 15 we will see how do people finally come to know me, Krishna, consciousness. And what are the terms that are used to define me? That we will see next time. So we'll close here.